for something completely unrelated, and also how many people just plain get busted for pot. When we try to get that information, they say, oh no, we're not going to give you that information so that you can know the truth about how heinous the war on drugs is, because we respect the privacy of the people in the drug treatment clinics and the prisons. Now all of a sudden they care about your privacy. And that's what we have, a government that cares about privacy when it comes to covering its own ass, but doesn't give a damn about you and your privacy and you and your choices. But it's our bodies and it's our choices, and we have sovereignty there. We have a war against cannabis, and it's asinine, especially when you consider that pot is the anti-drug. Now, I've got the banner back there I've been showing all weekend, cannabis, the anti-drug, because they say this is the anti-drug, that's the anti-drug. As far as I can tell, the only real anti-drug we have in this country is pot, because there is no credible drug education coming out of our government, no credible education in our schools, and then we have the DARE program with even less credibility, making things even worse. Because when you dare to lie to kids in a DARE program about pot, you're going to have some angry kids when they grow up and learn that they've been lied to about pot. I mean, just listen to the music these kids listen to. It all sounds so angry, you know. Well, these kids, you know, found out they got lied to about pot, and it kind of made them lose their cool. You know, and it'd make me feel that way too. So, if anyone tells you that pot is the worst thing in the recreational use and yada yada, you tell them pot is the anti-drug, and you can pick any of these 10 reasons why. There is no cancer from pot. They expected millions of cases of lung cancer and all kinds of cancers from pot from just the people in the 60s who smoked it. There is not one. Pot does not cause cancer because pot is the anti-drug. Pot does not get you addicted. Certainly you can be fixated, and hey, I'm a hemp-fixated marijuana separatist myself. So maybe I've got some psychological issues, but I am not physically addicted to cannabis. It's impossible to get physically addicted to cannabis, because when you smoke your pot, in your first 2 hits, your brain is not releasing dopamine or endorphins, it's releasing melatonin. Melatonin is crucial to sleep, REM, dreaming sleep. It's the healthiest thing that your brain can do. When you smoke pot, you are refreshing your brain. And then if you go beyond the first 2 hits, you go into the natural brain reflex of a deep cycle of sleep after REM. That's that relaxation mode that is so, that pot is so famous for, and that the patients who have spastic conditions require in order to get out of their wheelchairs or use the bathroom by themselves, and such frivolous things as that. So we have to keep in mind that, again, pot is the anti-drug. It is not addictive. Pot is not a gateway drug. It's the gatekeeper drug. And the gateway drug is all about the fact that cocaine leads to heroin. When you're using cocaine, the damage that causes to your brain, if you don't have cocaine, you try heroin the first time, and you feel relief greater than you ever felt with cocaine, and you switch from cocaine to heroin, going deeper into addiction. And then some idiot decided, since pot's a softer drug than cocaine, pot must lead to cocaine, therefore we have this connection. That, you know, it's all rhetoric, it's all imaginary, because there is no dopamine connection with smoking pot. Therefore, pot doesn't correlate with heroin. They've been trying to tell us for decades that pot is just a weaker form of heroin. If you're into heroin and you go into heroin withdrawal, the last thing you want is pot. Pot will actually make you go into withdrawal harder, because pot is the anti-drug. If it makes you go into harder withdrawal, that means it's not like an addictive drug at all. It's the opposite. There are no huge drug cartels around cannabis for a couple reasons. One, of course, is that you can't jack up your profit margins. When I was dealing pot in high school, I would either buy an ounce and sell 3 quarters and have the 4th quarter to save, or I'd buy a 1/4 pound, sell 3 ounces, have the 4th quarter pound to save. And I hope you dealers are still doing that. It's called the 25% markup. It was back then. You could take an ounce and roll it into joints, and you would still have basically a 25% markup. Pot dealers aren't greedy. And if you tried to get greedy, your customer would say, hey, screw you, I'm not paying too much for this weed, and if I really feel that strongly about it, I'm going to grow my own. You can't do that with heroin. You can't do that with cocaine. Pot doesn't lead to drug cartels like those drugs do, because pot is the anti-drug. And of course, when the CIA smells money for their secret wars, they turn to heroin production in Afghanistan. They turn to cocaine production in Central America. They don't grow pot because they can't make enough money to buy their war toys with pot. So you'll see no CIA involvement with pot, except, of course, to attack and eradicate it. That's because pot is the anti-drug.
Or to arrest
it is impossible to overdose from pot. Simple enough. Enough said on that. Pot is the anti-drug. There are no precursor chemicals required to make pot. Certainly if you want to be fancy about it, you can get fertilizers and all that, but what's the catchphrase? What is it? Organic weed? So apparently you can grow pot without the chemistry. Try to make cocaine without precursor chemicals. Try to make methamphetamine without precursor chemicals. Try to make heroin and methamphetamine, and methadone without precursor chemicals. You can't do it. You can't make a lot of these drugs without oil. But pot, all you need to make pot is sunlight and water, because pot is the anti-drug. There is no bad history associated with pot. The entire world history, some of the oldest relics in existence, are made from cannabis hemp. The only bad things ever said about cannabis came from America in the 1920s and 30s, thanks to a racist publisher named William Randolph Hearst, that used the racist hate speech word marijuana to tar and to hide cannabis hemp from us and trick our Congress into a racist hate law to make cannabis illegal. The first to tax it out of existence. Of course, nowadays I wouldn't mind paying $1 an ounce tax for my weed, as long as they didn't tax industrial hemp that way. But cocaine, relatively new thing, the 1860s, 1870s it came out, and it didn't take even a decade before people were having problems with it. Heroin, a famous problem drug. And then methamphetamine, the bennies from World War II, and methadone came out of the labs of fascist Germany. There's evil history behind the addictive drugs. You don't see anything like that with cannabis because pot is the anti-drug. There is no pollution associated with pot. If we were all here smoking pot and not doing any other drugs, you would see nothing but footprints left. But we have people here who drink beer, and they leave beer cans behind. You get broken glass, and you get other forms of violence against inanimate objects, things that create pollution and destruction around alcohol. There's a sea of cigarette butts, and I hope everyone here at least picks up 2 cigarette butts on their way out of here. A sea of cigarette butts on all our beaches. The birds pick them up and eat them and get poisoned by them. It takes 2 cigarette butts to kill a toddler child if they eat them accidentally. Potheads, they don't leave much behind. They save their seeds. They either eat them or grow them. They save their shake at the end of the joint. They save their roaches. They even save their roach papers to smear some tar from their pipes so that they can get that cannabis rebate effect. They recycle, they reuse, they reduce everything. The pothead is the ultimate model of the environmentalist. And you know why that is? Let me hear everybody say it. Pot is the anti-drug. Let's make that a chant. Pot, the anti-drug. Pot, the anti-drug. Pot, the anti-drug. Pot, the anti-drug. And so I want to know, again, will our first black president do away with the last Jim Crow law?
Hopefully. Thank you.
Well, we got a band coming up. They're not quite ready yet. I'm going to fill a little bit here. I want to know one thing. What's the difference between an anti-marijuana ad and political government propaganda?
Nothing!
Oh, there is a difference. You see, the government political propaganda at least makes a point. What is this thing about pot? They hate pot so much, it's like racism. It's like, oh, those pot people, they're just lazing in the sun. They don't work, Isn't that what pot people are like? Oh, those pot people, I don't want one to date one of my daughters. No, wait, no pot people.
They're mad about
those pot people, they can't drive. Oh, they're godless. Those pot people, they're just out of control. They're messed up kids in tie-dye shirts. You know what? We are the responsible recreational cannabis consumers of America. we're here, we're high.